Andy Staples, what's going on, man? How are you?
I am happy to be here, Braden.
Live. Hey, there's football happening.
We're in Mobile. There is actual football product happening behind us, because you got to wean yourself off.
Yep, that is true. That is true. All right, so speaking of the championship game, Ohio State, Michigan, back-to-back championships. I've been asking this kind of everybody, which is
back-to-back
Big Ten championships. Big door.
For the Big Ten,
Yeah.
by the two fan bases that hate each other the most.
I think there are some lessons that SEC teams and fans can take from those two programs and two teams and their two championships. What do you take from their ability to accomplish what they did?
Well, the Ohio State one's actually a little more like the old era. The one you have to kind of watch is the Michigan one, because they were able to find some guys, develop them, also add some pieces through the transfer portal, like in key spots, and then get them all to come back. Like, Ohio State was a bunch of five-star guys that all decided to stay together, came back for one more run. Like, we're not going to see that level of talent stacking in the future, because it's something that Alabama and Georgia were very good at. And I just don't think it's going to be possible for anybody to do that, including Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State now. So you've got to kind of hit your spot, find your window like Michigan did, where that was their open window. They hit it, and you had a mix of guys who were maybe under-recruited, who you developed, but also some five-star guys. Like J.J. McCarthy was a five-star guy. Donovan Edwards was a five-star guy. And you just have to you're going to have to mix it up better. It's not just, I'm going to stack so much talent that my backups are better than a top 25 team's starters.
Do you think Georgia had an opportunity to do that this offseason? They thought $4 million too much for Carson Beck. I'm not going to argue with them on that point, but there's a lot of guys, Malachi Starks, a lot of underclassmen going pro, and I think, to your point, Michigan and Ohio State did a great job of retention of their good players on top of all the other stuff you're talking about. Is Georgia, Texas is maybe another candidate here. Is Georgia the team that could have done what Michigan, Ohio State have done, and maybe what Penn State is actually doing right now?
It's hard, though, because when you have first and second round draft picks, they're not coming back. You can offer them whatever you want in NIL. They're not coming back. It's when you have the third and the fourth round guys who actually could be starting in the NFL next year, but you make it worth their while to give it one more shot. I just, if you've got a first round guy or fringe first, second round guy, they're just not going to come back. And that's what Georgia, almost a little too good at developing the talent. Like, they've had so many high round draft guys, but it's going to be interesting, because Georgia the last couple of years, since they lost Bowers and McConkey, they've not had the level of talent at receiver. And even when they had those guys, when they were injured, they didn't have the playmakers who scared you. Like, Ohio State is so deep on that front, and still so deep. They kept Jeremiah Smith, obviously. There's no number high enough for Jeremiah Smith. Like, he's that valuable. Carnell Tate they kept, which I was a little surprised, because he could have gone and been wide receiver one pretty much anywhere. But at Ohio State, they've shown you can be wide receiver two there and still be a first-round draft pick. So, and then they've got Brandon Ennis. They've got more five stars coming in. So they've done a better job of making sure that these explosive guys who can stretch the field. Georgia has struggled with that, it feels like, and that part they need to fix now. Maybe Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas can do that for them. You go get Texas A&M's best receiver in Thomas. Branch is interesting because, like, the USC people will tell you they gave him targets. Like, he just was not as explosive as he was his freshman year. So if they unlock that, because Branch, when he got to USC, I thought, okay, it's not a Percy Harvin type guy, but it may be a Kadarius Toney type guy who can really, when he has the ball in his hands, be scary. But we haven't seen that, like, his sophomore year. It just, as a receiver, it hasn't come out yet.
What SEC? No coaches were fired. Mm-hmm. Lots of quarterbacks have departed.
Yep.
Lots of teams are surging. Florida, South Carolina, LSU look like they're going to be better. Questions about Alabama. Tennessee might take a step back.
Interesting that you mentioned, other than Tennessee,
who are you interested in?
You mentioned the teams that bring back a quarterback that they're really excited about. South Carolina, Florida, LSU. All teams that bring back quarterbacks that they are either very pumped about or very happy with. They're happy. LSU's happy with Nussmeier. South Carolina and Florida, you look at Lenora Sellers and DJ Lagway, off the charts excitement about what those two guys could be, because I think we haven't seen them anywhere near their ceilings yet. And so that makes you go, well, what can they be? So that part's interesting. The lack of Nico continuous hype, I'm curious about, because I think you got to remember Nico is a first-year starter this year. Like, if he develops and gets better, like, think about Jaden Daniels from his first year as the LSU starter, which was actually his fourth year as a starter, to the year two. I don't think we throw Nico out here.
No, but I think there's so much veteran. I mean, that team was like a bunch of 24-year-olds. Like,
that's true.
So much veteran talent.
Yeah,
it's all on him now.
And we will finally see offensive linemen recruited by Josh Heupel and staff that are starting that weren't transfers like Lance Hurd.
Any big changes? Are we going to overreact to the college football playoff, whether it's TV ratings, whether it's the seeding? Any changes you anticipate or expect?
I think the seeding probably gets changed, because it embarrassed them that you had Oregon beating Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, and essentially Oregon getting punished by getting the toughest first opponent. They had the bye, but then Ohio State was clearly the toughest opponent, and then Penn State got the easiest path thanks to losing the Big Ten championship game. You can't have that. You just can't. So I think the deliberate misseeding is probably something they can change. Everything else, you got to wait until after next year, because that's when the end of the contract is. And instead of a unanimous decision, it's majority decision. And hey, you can either be part of this and have the money or not. And that's probably going to get everybody in line.
Andy, always a pleasure, my guy. Good to see you. Safe travels back home.